Welcome back, sci-fi fans. This is Greg from Greg Reviews Sci-Fi, and today we're going to review the book We Are Legion by Dennis E. Taylor. The book We Are Legion, and in parentheses, We Are Bob, is actually the first book in the Bobiverse trilogy. And I've read all three, and I can talk about the other two at a later date, but for this review, we're just going to talk about We Are Legion. So We Are Legion is the first book in the Bobiverse trilogy. And I saw these books come up again and again and again in like my science fiction groups on Facebook and different blogs I read, saying they were amazing books. And I looked at the series and I thought, Bobiverse, I'm sure they're fine books, but they're not for me. Like, I stay away from anything cheesy, like cheesy science fiction. It has to be B-rated or like low budget sci-fi in order for me to really appreciate something cheesy. Like, I don't really like slapstick cheesy. And I thought by the title of Bobiverse trilogy, I thought, oh man, this is going to be one of those sci-fi books. And I couldn't be more wrong. So I'm not going to spoil too much of the book because I really think that you should read this one. But I'm going to give you enough of a hint so that you know it's not some cheesy, third-rate sci-fi book. As you might expect, this book is about a guy named Bob. And Bob is a software engineer that has just sold his company, is super rich, and has decided to splurge on freezing himself in the case of his death, that he might be resurrected in the future. And I don't want to spoil any of that because, how and what that all is pretty interesting. And as you might guess, this book takes place in the future. So Bob does, in fact, get frozen and woken up in the future. And what happens is he ends up being stuffed in this probe. And if you know what a von Neumann probe is, the theory of it anyway, it's a probe that goes out into space with its sole purpose is to replicate, to make other probes in order to explore the universe and find habitable planets for humanity and send back to Earth the fact that there's habitable planets. Well, one of Bob's jobs as this, we'll just call him the captain of the probe until you read the book, I don't want to spoil it, is to replicate himself and create other probes. That's where the whole point of the Bobiverse comes in. And what Dennis Taylor does with this phenomenon is what makes this book so special. So when Bobs replicate, each Bob, even though it's exactly a clone from the current Bob, pops out on the other end just a little bit different. And Taylor does an amazing job of differentiating these Bobs into different people. They have different wants and desires. They might all have the same past, but they all do not have the same future. And he takes this phenomenon and really uses it to explore worlds, and there's conflicts with other factions of Earth that have sent out their own probes. You might think, oh man, you're spoiling the book. I have not spoiled it at all. These are things that are on the description of the back of the book. It's really some amazing piece of writing. Probably one of the best modern sci-fi books that I've ever read. And I've read hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of modern sci-fi books. So let's get to the review. For story, I gave it 5 stars, a perfect score. The story is perfectly written. It's a story arc over 3 books. You're going to want to get all 3 books. Like I said, we're only talking about this book. So this book really sets up, We Are Legion is really the beginning of Bob's Bobiverse empire, however you want to say it. He's not taken over the universe or anything, but he's created enough of himself in order that there's a group of them now, and they're doing They're doing various different things out in the universe. And I think the story is as good as it gets. It's perfectly written. There's no holes. At the end of the book, you feel like you read a good book, but you cannot wait to get to the next one. So it doesn't leave you upset, or it doesn't make you feel like you were cheated or anything like that. It's a good stopping point, and you really want to see you really want to read the next book. Characters, I gave it another 5 stars. I really wish that I could give this 25 stars. I can't imagine how hard it would be to even write about cloning one person and having that other person have a personality that's just enough individual that it's different, but enough the same that you know it's a clone. That sort of deep planning and thought about the characters is really unbelievable. So that is really what pushed this book over the edge. 5 stars, 55 stars if I could do it. Pace, you might have guessed it, I gave it another 5 stars. Like I said, you read this book and you get to the end of the book and you go, oh, it's over? It's a one-sitting book. I mean, your eyes are gonna hurt. You're gonna be thirsty. They're all, you're gonna be uncomfortable. Like your leg is gonna fall asleep. Like all of these things, you're gonna just sit there and get through it, and it's gonna be a fun ride. You're gonna get to the end of the book, and if you don't have book 2 queued up, you're gonna be in some real trouble. So just get all 3, and just get ready to dive into book 2. Originality, this is where it didn't make a perfect score. I gave it 4.5 stars, which is still really good. The story is original, but it already got 5 stars on that. But the von Neumann probe, the whole concept of what happens to Bob and sent off, there are other books out there that do that, where they all different methods, where they turn into a cyborg and put him in a ship and send him out, or you go in cryo freeze and you send out and you wake up and you go back in cryo freeze and go to a different planet and you wake up. There's lots of books like that. This concept is really not an original concept, but it's just beautifully executed. Technology, I penalized this 1 star. We got 4 stars. The use of technology is great, but there's a couple of interesting pieces of technology in the middle, like how Bob gets started. But overall, we didn't really invent anything new. We just really used things that are in the sci-fi genre and really beautifully executed it. So, I really think the technology is great. It's not 5 stars great. I mean, it's not like no one invented the lightsaber, right? Like this is just using regular sci-fi technologies like lasers and kinetic rounds and things like that in a very interesting and nicely executed way. So as you might have guessed, in conclusion, I really love this book. I don't know if I hope Dennis is able to make this into a movie and do all the things what happens when you have a great book. It's definitely better than anything I've read this year. And I would say it's probably better. It's as good as Forever War, a little different, one of my other favorite books. It's better than Altered Carbon, which is also very good. It's in that realm. It's a different kind of book. It's an easy read. It's a great story. It's not super, super deep. Like if you're looking for like Ringworld style hard sci-fi, it's not so much that. It's somewhere in between like a hard sci-fi and an easier read sci-fi. But that's really what I like. I like to use my brain a little bit, but I read right before bed, so I can't get too crazy. This book was an absolute pleasure to read. If you want to learn more about this book, please see the links in the descriptions. As always, you can find me on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Goodreads as Greg Reviews Sci-Fi. Send me a message. If you've read this book, put it in the comments. Tell me what you think. Tell me if you think I'm going overboard. I think if you've listened or read any of my other reviews, I'm fairly critical. As a matter of fact, I've got a critical review that I've been putting off for a couple weeks that's coming up right after this one. So thanks again for watching, and I'll see you next time.